DreAllDay.com.
Now tuned in to the show where you learn the discipline to show up day after day to do the work, the confidence to put yourself out there boldly and authentically, and the mental toughness to continue showing up, doing the work, putting yourself out there even when the success you expected to achieve is yet to be achieved. And on top of all this, you get a huge dose of personal initiative, which is the go-getter energy that moves any of us, including yourself, to go and make things happen instead of waiting for things to happen. We put all this together in a one bundle package philosophy, mindset, book, show, and masterclass that is known as Work on Your Game. My name is Dre Baldwin, also known as Dre All Day, and welcome to the show. Today's topic is why you need a plan. Simple as that. Why do you need a plan in life? The reason why I'm talking about this is because as I just have thought about, a lot of times people ask me about, Dre, athletes would always ask me, how can I start to develop my game? I want to become a better player. I'm in high school. I want to play in the NBA. How do I get myself ready over the next 6 years to get myself ready for the NBA? Or I'm a business person and I want to start a business maybe. How do I get my business to where it's making me a full-time income? Or I'm doing a business on the side and I want to make me more money. Or I want to write a book and I'm just starting the manuscript. How do I actually get it to the point that everything is out and there's an actual book in my hands and I can sell it to people and they can read it and tell me how great of an author I am? How do I actually do these things? Often people ask me about, and these are examples of getting from where you are at some point to some goal that may be kind of far away from where you are right now, or at least it appears to be. And they ask, how can they do that? As if it's not always such a simple one-step thing or even a 5-step thing. There are several steps that may go into it, and it also depends on many subjective factors, such as who is this individual person, or relative factors. Who is this individual person? Where are you right now? What is the actual outcome that you're trying to get to? How do you want to get to it? Do you want to do it this way? You want to do it that way? What have you done up to this point? What are you doing at this exact moment? There are a lot of things that can go into it, and all of this comes down to, what is the plan? What's the process that needs to be followed for you to get from point A to point G or point M or point Z? There needs to be a plan in place. And something that I was thinking about when I was just thinking about these kind of questions that I get from people is that every professional who is great at what they do, and they are consistently great at what they do, they all work with plans. They all work within frameworks of knowing what they're working on, knowing how they're working on it, knowing exactly what steps are going to be followed, knowing what step they're on now, what step they will be on tomorrow, what step they get to work on next. They know exactly what they're doing. There is a specific process in place for them to get from where they are to where they are going. Every professional works within a plan. Any of you who is a professional at your professional thing, the thing that you do that is your main full-time occupation, I would assume that either you or somebody that works with you or for you or who you work for, there is a plan in place for you to be doing what you're doing. When you get to work, you know what you're working on, you know why you're working on it, you know what this step is accomplishing, and you know what the next step is, and the next step, and the next step. And if you've ever been doing any kind of professional work, and there was not a plan in place, you probably felt a little bit flustered, not quite knowing exactly what you were doing or why you were doing it. Maybe you knew what you were doing, but you don't know why you're doing it, how you're doing it, how does it fit into the bigger picture of what's going on. Maybe you didn't know what the bigger picture was because there was no plan in place. And it's hard to work that way when there's no plan, because then how can you be excited about what you're doing? You're kind of like a robot just doing the same thing over and over and over again. For example, when I was in high school, my senior year of high school, I worked at McDonald's. And when in McDonald's, you get there, you take people's orders. So I worked every job in there. So I took people's orders at the front line where the registers are. I worked the fry machine. I worked in the back as a cook. It's not really cooking, because all you do is just throw the meat on there, and when you push the little button, and when the buzzer sounds, you lift it up and you just take the meat off. That's technically quote unquote cooking. So I did the cooking. That was all the jobs you could do. So I did every job you could possibly do working at a McDonald's. I made the McFlurries, I did all that stuff, but there was no long-term plan. Now, there was a process. If somebody ordered something, there was no way you could really mess it up if you worked at McDonald's. As long as you could read, you could understand English, and you had any level of sense, all you had to do was follow the process. The process was so set that there was no way anybody could mess it up. You had to really try hard to mess up the system in McDonald's, and that's why McDonald's is so successful. But I didn't see McDonald's as a long-term job for me, because first of all, I knew what I wanted to do, and I knew I was going to college, and I knew it wasn't going to be working at McDonald's. But the thing about working there, I never saw that as, I couldn't see anyone doing that long term in their lives simply because there was no plan. There was no plan for someone to move up unless, I guess, you were trying to get into management and maybe you could eventually work your way up the corporate ladder at McDonald's. I never saw it that way. They never presented it to me. Maybe I wasn't an exemplary type of employee who was the type of person who they saw as being on that track. There was one guy who started working with us all at the same time, and he got promoted to like I guess like a shift manager position. So it was like a little bit bump above us, a level above us. And maybe they saw him as someone who had the potential to get to that level. I don't know whatever happened to that guy. I think he was still working there when I stopped working there. So who knows? Maybe he's in middle management of the company. Maybe he's the CEO of the company to this day. I have no idea. But the whole point is this: there's a plan. I remember actually when I was working at McDonald's. Speaking of that, the manager, the lady who ran it, what was her name? I can't remember her name. Let's just say her name was Mary. She had on this button-up shirt once with a logo on the left breast pocket that said Hamburger University. And at first when I saw it, I thought it was a joke. But then I realized, because I saw some manuals that she had and I asked her a couple questions, she told me the Hamburger University was a real place. I don't know if it still exists in McDonald's ecosystem, but it was a real place that when you are the manager of a McDonald's, you go to this place called Hamburger University, and it's not like no UCLA or Alabama, like you go to school there, but you actually go to this place and you get trained how to run the McDonald's system. And I'm sure there's something in there. I'm just going to assume this. I don't know this to be a fact, but I'm going to assume that there's something during the whole process of learning at Hamburger University for those new managers that they incentivize you and let you know, hey, if you run this thing right, here's a way you could possibly move up in our corporate system. Or if the McDonald's happens to be a franchised location, then they'll just show you, hey, here's how you run it, and here's how you can make more money and have a thriving location and things like that. So there has to be some type of ascension plan for anyone who's in like a forward moving, or what's the word I'm looking for? A forward progressing position, let's say, within the McDonald's organization. But somebody like me, some entry level employee like me, I guess they don't really show that to people like us unless we happen to show some promise and look like we're actually looking to go somewhere with the company. Like that one guy who worked with us who got promoted to shift manager, but the rest of us, we'd be back there joking around, playing around, throwing hamburgers and stuff like that. Not the ones that y'all ate. All right, you didn't eat a hamburger off the floor or nothing like that. At least not when I was working there. But we were playing around and stuff like that. So I guess they didn't see us as anyone who needed to know about the plan. The whole point is this: every professional has a plan. Any professional is going to move forward. There's a plan in place. And for you to move forward and doing what you need to do, you must have a plan. So today I'm going to sell you on why it is important that even if you're doing good at what you do right now, even if you're getting results, even if things are working at least in some way, at least sometimes, you still need to have a plan in place. That is the concept that I aim to sell you on today. Even myself, running my business, there were times where many times where I was working without a plan. I was doing a whole lot of work. I was hustling hard as hell. I was working hard every single day. I felt like I was really grinding and doing things, and things were working. I would make some money. I would do some deals. I'd close some gigs. I'd acquire some clients. I'm selling products. Things are actually working, but there was no system. There was no plan. I had no idea what I was doing, why I was doing it, where I was going. Actually, I knew what I was doing. Let me back up. I knew what I was doing and why I was doing it. And I had an idea where I wanted to go, which was make more money and make my business bigger, but they were not connected. There was no process. If someone had just looked into my business, let's say someone had just dropped in my business and said, Dre, I'm here to help you in your business. Tell me what you're doing. Tell me how everything is working. Tell me what your system is so I can jump in and help where I can help, get in where I fit in. I could not have answered that question. I could not have told them where I was going, why I was going there, what the process was, because there was no process. And now, these days, that I have a plan, I know exactly what I'm doing, why I'm doing it every day, how I'm doing it. I know how they connect to each other and what the bigger picture outcome is. I am a lot more at ease with the work that I'm doing, and I'm working just as hard, but it doesn't feel as hard because I know where I'm going. I can see how each piece connects to another piece. So when I'm doing things, I know why I'm doing it. I know the reasoning behind it. And if I ever catch myself having an extra hour or two of work time available to me, I know exactly what I can work on because I know what the next step in the plan is. So I'm going to sell you again on why you want to have a plan in your business here today. Point number one, topic once again, why you need a plan. All professionals work with plans, which I've already told you. Any of you who follows my stories on social media, whether that be Snapchat, Facebook, Instagram story, you see me always showing you a picture or a video of a construction site, because there are a lot of them in Miami, so there's plenty to choose from. And I always tell you always use the same hashtag, one day at a time. And the thing about construction sites, and my guy Kyle, who has a podcast called Niche Radio, he works in construction. He's built several buildings, some of them in South Florida, and I believe in California, where he is now. And I asked him, I confirmed with him when I was on his podcast, anytime there's a construction project going on, no one does anything until a plan is in place and everyone has signed off on it, right? And Kyle said, absolutely. Of course, you get the blueprint laid down, and then this person has a plan, and then it has to be vetted by these people, and this person has to look at it. A bunch of people have to look at the plan, and everyone has to sign off on the plan before any of the construction workers actually start doing any work. And if any plans need to be altered, if along the way people are like, wait a minute, we got to make an alteration to this plan, it has to go through that entire process all over again and make sure everyone understands why the plan is changing, what the change is going to be, how it's going to work, and everyone understands what the change is before the construction workers need to do anything different. Before one brick gets laid, an entire plan needs to be laid out. All right, that's the way buildings get built. The building that I'm inside right now, I'm on a pretty high floor. If there was not a sound plan for building this building, I wouldn't feel too safe being in here. But I trust that my assumption that there was a sound plan put in place. And then after the building is built, then what happens? Then you get the inspectors. They got to come in and check things out. They got to make sure everything is working right. Then the building, whoever owns the building, they got to come in and check things out, because if anything goes wrong with the infrastructure of the building, let's say the building just collapsed and a whole bunch of people just collapse on top of each other and a bunch of people die, somebody's going to lose a whole lot of money, and some people are going to go out of business, and some people are going to be out of a career because the plan obviously was not sound. The plan was obviously not right. In the construction world, all of us, every single one of us, unless you work in construction, we must trust that this is happening in the construction world, because if you are inside of a building right now, or you're next to a building, that if that building collapsed, you would either fall under the weight of it or it will fall on top of you. You can trust that that's not going to happen, because you trust that the construction, again, inherently you trust, unconsciously, you trust that they did the things the right way. All right, and where I live is a whole bunch of really, really tall buildings. So one of them started falling over. By the time I realized it was falling, I think I'm pretty fast, but I'm not fast enough to outrun that. All right, the building's a little bit too big. So we got to trust that. And all of us do. If you sleep inside of a building or even next to a building, you're trusting that that building's not going to collapse while you sleep. Apple, the company, someone told me that Apple has a plan 5-10 years out into the future of what they're going to be working on, why they're working on it, how they're working on it, what it's going to look like, what they're going to sell it for, all of these things. They may not have it concrete 100%, because we know things change over time, but they have a plan. They know where they're going. They know why they're going there, and they know who's going to be working on it. Any of you ever been to a concert? You've been to a Taylor Swift concert or a Beyonce show? Those dance routines, the songs that they perform, the lineup of the music that gets played, the lighting, the scheduling of the dates and the locations when an artist goes on tour, all of those things are planned out. If you are not a professional in your work right now today, and you begin to work with professionals, I guarantee you something. They will design a plan even if there is not a plan. Or if there's not a plan right now, they're going to ask you, hey, what's the plan? Oh, there's no plan. All right, how about we make a plan so we know exactly where we're going? Because people want to know where they're going. All right, professionals will always work with a plan. So the next time you hire someone or you partner with someone, this is a great way to know if they're a true professional. They will either ask you what the plan is, or they will volunteer to make one themselves. If they don't do that, then who you're working with is probably not a professional. I'll tell you, when I wrote my book, Work on Your Game, working with a traditional publisher as opposed to publishing through Work on Your Game Incorporated, as I've done all of my other books, they laid out a plan, or they asked me to lay out a plan. Actually, they didn't lay out the plan. They gave me a framework. They gave me a document that had it was basically a worksheet for me to lay out the plan for how I was going to write the book, because they know, as professionals, they were like, all right, in order to make sure this book gets done, we can't just say, all right, Dre, good luck. The ink is dry on your contract. Go write the book and get it to us as quickly as possible. No, there was an entire plan in place, how you're going to write this book, when this thing is due, when this part is due, when this needs to be approved, when you need to do this, when you need to do this edit. This is when it's going to come out. This is when you're going to get your copies. This is when we're going to do that. Everything was planned out to a T years in advance before the book even came out. And this has nothing to do with writing books. This is about being a professional. If you want to be a pro, there must be a plan in place. If you don't have a plan, you are not being a pro right now, and you need to professionalize what you are doing by making plans in your game. And I did a whole episode on professionalizing your business back in masterclass number 1310. I'm not sure I even talked about plans in that masterclass. I would have to listen to it again myself to even know if I did. But again, masterclass 1310, you can go listen to it and see if I talked about planning. If I didn't, then you can add that to the list of everything I already talked about in there, because everything I talked about was true. I just might not have put everything in there. One of them being you have to have a plan. Point number 2. Today's topic is why you need a plan. Number 2, the plan is your fallback when things go off course, or your boss, and your plan is also your boss when you show up to work one day, not even quite clear on exactly what to do. The plan will tell you what to do next. And if things go off course, let's say some emergency pops up in your work or in your day or in your life or whatever you're doing, and you have to tend to that emergency. You got to put out that fire. When that fire is put out, that emergency is handled. Now you're like, man, where was I? I lost my focus. I was locked in. Now I don't even remember where I was. I'm discombobulated. All you got to do is look at your plan. Your plan will tell you what your next step is, what you have not finished, what's the next thing you need to be doing. Your plan tells you what you should be doing today, next week, next month, this year. How many people have game and skill? Now, maybe talking to you, maybe talking about somebody you know. Has game, has skill, have resources. Yet, they seem to not know what to do with any of it. Again, pausing for emphasis here. I just want you to think about that. Are you a person who has game, you have skill, you even have resources, you have the tools to do great things, yet you feel like you have no idea what to do with all those resources? You ever felt like that? If so, it's probably because you don't have a plan in place. That's why you have all these tools, all these resources, all these skills, all this talent, all this time, energy, attention, money, focus, but you don't know what to do with any of it because you don't have a plan. If you made a plan, you could tell all those resources exactly where to go and how to be utilized best. So making a plan would help you a lot. Point number 3, today's topic is why you need a plan. I'm selling you on the concept. Number 3, when there is a plan in place, here's what happens. The people around you who may not be as genius as you are, they can follow your process and help where they can. As I just gave you an example, if someone came and started working for me, let's say 4 or 5 years ago, and said, Dre, I'm here to help you. So whatever you need, just tell me what you need and I'll help you with your plan. I'll help you execute whatever you're working on. I could not have told that person what to do. Actually, I could have told them what to do, but it would have been a whole lot of tactical things. Like, all right, do this. All right, you did that. All right, do this now. They did that. All right, do this now. All right, you did that. All right, do this. All right, took your week. All right, next week, do this. I would just be continually telling that person what to do, which would have just been another job for me. And actually might not have helped me that much because now I just gave myself a job of giving another person another task and another task and another task. When you have a plan, the people around you can see exactly where they fit, exactly what they're supposed to be doing, and they can start helping you independently of you directing them and telling them everything they need to do. Especially for those of you who are entrepreneurs, especially you creatives out there. I know that everything is in your head perfect, exactly as it's supposed to turn out, right? Everything's in your mind. You couldn't explain it to anybody, but it's all in your head. You can see it perfectly, but understand everybody else can't see what's in your head. If everything's just in your mind, how can anybody else help you? If it's not on paper, if it's not laid out clearly, so simple that a caveman can understand it, how can anyone else help you? How can you ever acquire help? How can you ever procure help? How can you tell someone else to help you out if you don't even know what the plan is? Thusly, they can't know what the plan is. How can you strategize long term for where you want to go when you don't even have a concrete path for you to follow, let alone for anyone else to follow? What I just proposed to you is a trick question. You can't answer that question because it's impossible for anyone else to contribute to you or hurt you or help you if you don't have a plan that they can understand. It's impossible for anyone else to help you out in any way if there's no plan for them to jump in and assist with. You cannot strategize for the long-term success of your business or your life or your career when you don't even have a concrete path to be following. You can't strategize for a future outcome if you don't even know what the future outcome is and you have not drawn a line from your current position to the future outcome. Again, having it in your head is okay, but nobody else can help, and you can't even help yourself if everything's just in your head. All right, do not trust your long-term memory. A businessman once told me way early in my business career, he said, Dre, I trust a short pencil over a long memory. Meaning, write it down, put it on paper, write it with your thumbs on your phone if you need to. But make sure it is written down, make sure there's a plan in place that you can see, that somebody else can see. Eventually, you want your business to have more than one person in it besides you, right? Since you're not great at everything, you don't want to be the only one doing everything in your business, because there are going to be some things getting done at a mediocre level because you're mediocre at some things. That's just the way it is. So there needs to be a plan in place so you can eventually have some other people help you out, or to get more people to help you out than what you have right now. That just makes sense. That's the reason why you need to have a plan. So let's recap today's class, which is why you need a plan in your business. Again, masterclass number 1310, where I talked about professionalizing your business. Make sure you cross-reference it with this one. Number one, all professionals work with plans. Construction companies, when they build buildings, I don't care if it's a 1-story flat or a 60-story high-rise, there is always a plan in place before one brick gets laid down. If you've been to a Taylor Swift show or a Beyonce concert, every single thing in there is planned. The dance routines, the songs they perform, the lineup of the music, the schedule of the dates and locations, the clothes that they put on, everything is planned. Everything is choreographed. Nothing is just happening randomly. Everything is planned down to the period. And these are the best professionals and most talented and skilled people we know of. They're planning every single thing. So if you are not as talented and skilled at what you do as Taylor Swift and Beyonce are at music, how do you think you could not have a plan when they got a plan? Even if you think you are as talented as them, follow their example. All right, what's the example they give you? They made plans. So why don't you make a plan? Wouldn't that just make sense? Make a plan. A professional will always have a plan, or they'll ask you for a plan. And if there's not one, they will create one for you, simply because that's what professionals do. So if you got professionals around you, see if anybody lays out or suggests that there be a plan in place. Point number two, the plan is your fallback when things go off course, and your boss when you show up not knowing what to do. So whenever you got to put out a fire that takes you away from your focus, your plan will tell you how to get back on focus. Point number three, when there is a plan, the people around you who may not be as smart as you, who can't read your mind because all your plans are in your head, they can help you when there's a plan in place. But how can you know someone's helping you or contributing or hurting you, or how can you strategize for your future if you don't have a path to follow? Trick question, you can't follow it. So having a plan in place is the key thing to being a professional and making sure that you actually have a strategy to get from where you are to where you're going. Now the question may be, Dre, all right, I'm sold on the idea of a plan. Now the question is, how the hell do I make one? Good question, because tomorrow's episode, I'm gonna tell you exactly how. Work on your game. Dre, all